This is ADHESIVE. In this video, I'm going to, for the first time myself, try this process of repairing broken plastic using super glue, but also mixing it with baking soda. And I've heard of this before, and when I did my much earlier video on this Singer Model 353 Genie, the video about how to take all the covers off, one of my regular viewers, the Duncan Dan, said, you know, when he saw that this earpiece here for the screw that holds this on the front of the machine had been broken and cracked and so forth, he said, hey, that would be a good place to use this method. So I remembered that, and thanks for the tip, Duncan Dan. And I'm using that process. I Googled it a little bit, and I'm going to try my own little variation here. And I started working on it without filming it, but then I decided, you know, I should film it, because if it doesn't work, I don't have to post it, right? So what I did was I took some of this baking soda here, and I just put it in a little bowl here, and then I added just water. This is just purified water in here, H2O. And I added a few drops so that I could make like a paste out of the powder, because when I tried to put it just as a powder and get it to where I wanted it to go and stay, it was a big hassle. And just like before, I added a little too much water. So it's a good thing baking soda and water are not expensive, right? But I made a paste, and that way I could take this paste and I could kind of push it into places that I wanted to put it. So that's what I've done so far. I don't want to move this. I set it up before I even thought about filming it. But basically what's going on here was half of this tab broke off. And see if I can get a little closer in here. It was the part, the loop like where the screw goes through. Whoops. I don't know if that's going to focus here. Let's see if I can get it to focus. So it kind of broke straight along this line. You can kind of see the cracks there. And then I had a piece inside there also broke off. And a chunk is missing. So whoever took this off and put it on before, I don't think they got it right, and then they tightened the screw way too hard and it cracked everything. So what I've done is I just built up a block in my screwdriver box to get to the height of this. I put packing tape sticky side up right here, and then I taped it down so it wouldn't move. But I wanted that sticky side so I could assemble my two broken pieces up against the cover piece and kind of keep them in place, because when I was fooling around with them, some of the pieces were so small. Let me show you one piece from the hand wheel. I mean, they were little tiny, whoops, they were little tiny chunks like this that have broken off. And so I finally got the idea to use the sticky side of tape to get them together like a little jigsaw puzzle, and then set this cover up there against it. Okay, then I made my paste and I pushed it in there tried to get as much as I could in the cracks, and I had some pretty big gaps, like 1/32 of an inch and stuff. And I've been waiting for this to dry. So my idea was getting it a paste to get it where I want it to go and manipulate it. Let it dry so the moisture evaporates, and then put the super glue in there. Now, as it was drying, I took a little knife tool and I kind of scraped out the little circle part there and scraped off a lot of the extra baking soda. And then as it continued to dry, I kind of brushed off the excess, because once I get this on here, I might have to file this. Whoops, see, it's real movable. I might have to file this down and stuff to get it to the proper shape. So I don't want a bunch of excess. I use just a little empty eye drop bottle to use like a little blower. And I've got pretty much all I can do on this side. I'm going to later do the back side of it and try and fill in some more gaps and reinforce it on the back. But all I'm going to do now is just put my little drops of super glue on here, and I know it's going to like glue it to the tape, right? But the tape is real thin, and I'll be able to cut it off later, or even drill a hole back through it and so forth. And it's real. I have a real hard time controlling how much of that super glue comes out. So a bunch more just globbed on than I intended it to. But while I was waiting for this to dry, I was playing around with it a little bit just on a, let me back out here now, just on a piece of paper, because I had seen, like I said, some videos on YouTube, and you can Google around, where it dries pretty quick. Let me get, matter of fact, let me get some of this, let me get some fresh on here, and we'll just put a little on there. And it's supposed to make an adhesive a lot stronger than just the super glue, and give you a lot better bond. So over here where I did it before, it dried quickly, kind of, I would say, faster than just the super glue itself, and it seems nice and hard. So I'm excited to get this fixed, because originally I had thought maybe I'd have to go find like a small thin metal washer and you know, like glue it on the back of this to get it all together. And then I thought, well, the washer's gonna stick out against the machine up here. This is where that screw has to go in here, and you can see the part of it is built out a little bit to go into the back side of this ear. So I thought, well, if I put something in the back to glue it together, and then I thought about putting it on paper or aluminum foil and gluing it together, because that's something real thin. But I'm going to try this here, and since I globbed on so much of it, now I'm going to have to wait a while for it to dry. So when I feel it's dry, I'll come back and we'll see if this idea is going to work at all. And like I said, on the back side of this ear, I'm going to try the same thing with the baking soda and the glue. But first, let's get this dry and see if anything good came out of it. Okay, I think I'm getting light here. I think I'm dry now, so I'm going to back this out and see if I can get this See if it sticks together. I've got to get it off of this tape, which I think I've now glued the thing to the tape. Yeah. So, see if I can just take the whole, take this whole cover and tape off all in one, maybe. Get my screwdriver set out of there before I get glue all over it. See if we can look at the back side of this. There we go. Huh. That actually worked kind of good. See if I can get this in some better position here for you. So I can see back here where my paste, my baking soda paste, did kind of fill in part of the big chip I have missing here. And the piece is glued on, and it seems to be pretty good. So I'm actually pretty pleased with how strong this feels. Okay, let me get this down here. I thought I would have to be filling this chunk in from this side, but actually my paste went right through. And just like I saw in the YouTube videos, this mixture of super glue and baking soda, wow, it's hard. So I think I'm going to call that a success. I don't think I'm going to have to do any more on the back side here, because this smooth circular part is all exposed, and as I mentioned before, whoops, spilled my water. As I mentioned before, this is the smooth circular part right there that cover is going to go up on. So I think I'm actually pretty good, even though I've got a little extra sticking out here. I don't think I'm going to have to cut it or file it. Now I had figured I'd be taking a metal file on some of this and trying to smooth it out, but I think by putting the paste on there and shaping the paste with some tools and that little soft bristle brush, I think it actually saved me. I'll just go in here and cut out that circle big enough to get the screw through. I'm going to call it good. How about that? Huh. I'll be darned. Okay, I'm going to call that good. Now let me set up here, because I've got to find a solution for this broken hand wheel cover, end cover on the hand wheel. So I'm going to try something with that too, but not with the soda and super glue. I'm going to try something else. Okay, let's talk about my broken hand wheel pieces now. When I was doing the dismantling and stuff, I found out that on this hand wheel, which has this built-in stop motion rocker system, that the end cover or cover plate is a piece of plastic, and it has like a decal on it with this design that matches the front of the machine and says Singer Company and so forth. And it's held in place. It usually has these 4 little plastic tabs that evidently were glued on. It looks more like they were glued than molded. And then that snapped on, those 4 little pieces snapped into this hole in the center of the rocker, and that's what kept it on. And they were you know, this was loose when I pulled it out, and then I found the other 2 little pieces inside the hand wheel. So I kept them, thinking that I could maybe glue them back on with the same method of the super glue and the baking soda, but getting them in position and so forth just seemed like a nightmare to me. And I looked, and you can buy a hand wheel part of this, and you can buy the interior, the stop motion rocker parts, or you can buy the whole setup, because this same hand wheel is used on, I don't know, 3 or 4 different models. But the problem is that the plastic on a new one is much lighter in color than this. So since my machine has kind of got this yellowing going on, I wasn't sure I wanted this bright new hand wheel looking on it. Plus, it just has like a plain thing on the end, which would be fine, and all that would be fine. I'm trying to remember the price. I want to say $10 or $17. And all this part is good, so I could just buy the plastic parts, and I think that was about $7 or $8. But I wanted to match it with this, and I wanted to have that little bobbin symbol. And I don't. There's no way that I know of I can safely get this decal off and put it on the new one. So I decided I'm just going to glue this piece on. If you saw my hand wheel video, this all comes apart, and I'm thinking to myself I can glue it on without hurting anything and still be able to get it off and work in here if I had to, you know, by taking off the clip. So that's what I decided to do, and I figured, hey, if I screw it up, I can always buy a new deal. But I didn't think I would be able to. I was nervous about trying to use the baking soda and the super glue because it dries so quick, trying to spread it around somehow and get it on there and get it all set up and centered. And I don't know how flush this part fits against the metal. So I said I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to just use super glue or the combination of the soda and super glue. I'm just going to use some kind of an adhesive. And I've got a couple different adhesives I've used. This is a very common E6000 craft type of adhesive. This is a fabric adhesive, and I've used this to put on new, like, felts on the oil pan bottom of the machines. When I've had to replace the felts, I put some of this on. And I've also used, a friend of mine told me to use this RTV silicone, that it was a lot stronger and can take more heat. So I have used that before to put on the oil pan felts, and I think that's what I'm going to try now. This does take a little bit longer to dry than this. And it's a little more stinky, but I figure, hey, I'm going to put it on. My idea is put it on, spread it around, snap the plastic part in, and I don't care if it has to dry overnight, you know. then I'll end up with the original parts looking like they go with the machine. So that's my plan, and I'm sticking to it here. So I'm just going to get like maybe a Q-tip, a couple Q-tips maybe, to spread that stuff around. And I had cleaned this before with the crud cutter to get, you know, all the grease off and stuff. So, and rinsed it with water. I think I'm good with that. So I cleaned this part with the crud cutter also. So I hopefully will get good, you know, adhesion. And I think I'm going to try and put this stuff on here and spread it around, because when you snap it in, this little point or nipple has to go into this little hole. And that was so that this original disc, which just snaps in, can't twist around. Because they always wanted this thing lined up with here, which is where you push to stop motion, you know. So that's what I'm planning on doing here. And this came in a black and a clear version, and I got clear so I could see how I was spreading it on a black felt for an oil pan. But I don't think it's going to take a lot. So I think I'm just going to spread it around here. And maybe shape it up a little bit. I just don't want it oozing out the sides, you know. I might have got a little bit more than I needed on here. So let me grab some of the extra off of here, because I think these two pieces fit together pretty flush. But if you've ever used super glue, I mean, just look at my hands here. Just from opening that little thing, it squirted all over. And I tried to use nail polish remover, and that didn't do anything for me. So I guess I'll just wait till my skin renews itself. So just going to take that and kind of line up, like I said, that top pin or nipple with this hole. Kind of get it in there, and okay, I got it in the hole because it won't turn like this. I'm just going to push it down good and see if I can get a good seal on it. Right? Okay. Now let that dry for an hour. I'll have to read the back of this, get my magnifying glass, and see if I can read the back end of this about drying times, because there's not going to be much air in there to help dry. When I feel it's dry, I'll come back and we'll check it out here. Okay, it's been an hour since I used the adhesive to put this on, and I was reading on the back of this Pro Seal Clear RTV Silicone Adhesive and Sealant, and they even have directions here how to make a gasket, like for a motor. And the temperature range is a negative 75 Fahrenheit to a plus 400 degree Fahrenheit. Whew. So maybe that's why my friend recommended it. But after an hour, this is on there quite firmly, works quite well. And if I engage the stop motion so I can get up here and pull this off, it's on there nice and tight. And this says it dries in an hour, and it fully cures in 24. So it's already usable right now, I would say. And, you know, by tomorrow it'll be rock solid. So I'm very happy with that fix. I think that's going to work well. So to, you know, just to go back over this then, the super glue and baking soda worked well for fixing my broken tab here. It feels real strong. I can hold it up just by that tab, and it supports the weight, and I think it'll be fine. And I don't know how well that's showing to you, but there was a big chunk out here, and it filled up about 2/3 of that chunk when I packed in my baking soda paste from the front. So I'm not going to do anything in the back, but I do have a caution for you. You know, I said I hadn't planned to make this video really. I was just going to do it, but then I decided to film it and just kind of did it on the spur of the moment, and I paid the price for that. If you see right here, maybe it'll show it better here. You can see this spot. And this one here, that's super glue dropped on there from when I must have like put the super glue on it and then moved it, and a couple drops fell on here and I didn't see it. Now they wiped off, but here's the deal: that super glue kind of melted the surface of this old plastic. And you can see it took away the surface, because underneath it's more of the original light cream color, and to get the super glue off it left a rough surface. So I'm going to be using my polish and rubbing compound to smooth those out, but I'm going to be left with some light colored blemishes. So I guess if I had planned this video like I usually would, I could have put a cover over everything that was not my work area, which is what I normally, you know, would have done. So be careful if you using this around the old plastics, because evidently they chemically react with them. And just be sure and cover the areas that you know, that you aren't working on, to protect them from something like that. So live and learn there. But I think when I go to put these covers back on now, I think this is going to fit real well and work real well. So thanks again to the viewer, the Duncan Dan, for he had mentioned this process a while back. We chatted a little bit in the comment section on a different video about it, and I said, well, that's really interesting, and you know, I'll have to try that someday. And oh look, I found another little blemish here, darn it. And so when I did this remove the covers video, he commented again, hey, this would be a great time to try that. And you're right, it was, and it worked really well. I'll put a link to the removing covers video in the description below and at the end of the video. So there's a little bit of interest to you about repairing plastic with super glue and baking soda. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you come back and visit my channel in the future. Take care.